Explainer. Today, we're slicing right through the diplomatic noise to uncover what the hard-cold supply chain data is actually telling us about the May 2026 operating environment. I'm absolutely thrilled to guide you through this, because what we're looking at today fundamentally rewrites the rules of global network design. The era of predictable optimization, it's over. Today, we're mapping a totally new, fractured terrain.
Look, human nature has a massive bias towards stability, right? We all want things to just go back to normal. But this data-driven intelligence report from the Supply Chain Intelligence Bulletin completely dismantles that illusion of a return to a 2019 normal. Too many operators are still sitting on their hands, waiting for things to settle down before making structural changes. Our goal today is to show you why you have to start designing your supply chains around a permanently fractured architecture right now. You need to let the data lead your strategy, not nostalgia.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're covering the new operating environment, the frozen conflict in Hormuz, the structural decoupling of the US and China, how AI is stepping up to orchestrate the chaos, and finally, how you can actually design for disruption. Let's dive in.
To really set the stage on the sheer scale of global trade unpredictability right now, just consider this staggering number, 42%. That is how much the share of total U.S. bilateral trade with China has plummeted since 2016. That is not a seasonal blip, that's not a temporary trade dispute, that is a massive rewiring of supply chains that took 40 years to build, literally unraveling in less than a decade. The sheer velocity of this capital flight forces us to reevaluate every single assumption we hold about global sourcing.
Section 1. The new operating environment. So here's the baseline truth staring every executive right in the face. Ongoing disruption is not just a passing phase you can wait out. It literally is the permanent operating environment. The architecture we all built over the last 2 decades was optimized for a world of absolute stability, incredible speed, and openly integrated markets. But guys, that world is gone. Designing for today means designing for constant, overlapping disruptions. We're now operating in an environment where a sudden factory closure in one hemisphere instantly compounds a localized port strike in another. It creates this chaotic feedback loop that just shatters traditional lean inventory models entirely.
Section 2. Hormuz, a frozen conflict.
Let's pivot to the Middle East, where this chaotic reality is playing out in real time. The diplomatic headlines might be whispering about truces and ceasefires, but the actual supply chain data, it's screaming something else entirely. As of May 20th, exactly 2 vessels are transiting the Strait of Hormuz per day. Sure, 4 supertankers managed to squeeze out recently, which suggests some selective passage is possible under highly restricted, pre-approved corridors. But make no mistake, 2 daily transits is absolutely not a reopening. It's a trickle in a canyon that used to be a rushing river.
And the severity of that only really hits home when you compare those 2 transits to the pre-crisis baseline, which was 95 transits per day. This vital global choke point is functionally closed. Experts are calling it exactly what it is, effectively a frozen conflict. And a frozen conflict is literally the absolute worst planning scenario for supply chain operators because it completely paralyzes decision-making. You can't commit to permanent, expensive, long-term rerouting because, well, the situation might resolve. But you certainly can't rely on the primary lane either. It just produces sustained, agonizingly high costs with zero clear resolution date to plan around.
Now, if you're wondering, okay, so when does this actually end? Saudi Aramco's CEO, Amin Nasser, just gave us the most authoritative timeline we have. As the head of the company with the absolute most at stake and the deepest intelligence in the region, his forecast carries massive weight. He confirmed that even in a best-case scenario where the strait opens completely today, the market is still going to take months to fully rebalance. If it's delayed even a few more weeks, normalization stretches deep into 2027. So that 2027 timeline absolutely must become the base case in every single financial model you build moving forward.
So what do you do with this? You've got to build these immediate compounding costs into those financial models right now. I mean, the carriers are absolutely bleeding money. Maersk alone is taking a $500 million hit every single month in additional fuel, insurance, and routing costs. And guess what? They're recovering that through heavy surcharges on you, the shippers. Transpacific eastbound spot rates are currently hovering around $3,800 per FEU, and they're tightening toward a punishing $4,500 as peak season approaches. Throw in the domino effect of 4-day vessel wait times at congested ports like Qingdao, and you start to see how vessels falling out of their global scheduling windows creates this perfect storm of tightening capacity and skyrocketing costs worldwide.
Section 3. The U.S.-China structural decoupling.
Moving over to Asia, we hit our second major reality check. The diplomatic headlines are heavily pushing this illusion of a stabilized trade truce following the recent summit in Beijing,
right? They're highlighting highly publicized photo op-friendly deals like 200 Boeing aircraft orders and the creation of a new board of trade. It's actually kind of funny how desperately the market wants to believe a single board of trade is going to magically undo geopolitical tectonic shifts, because the structural reality for supply chains is so much harsher. Crucial Section 301 tariffs and stringent semiconductor export controls remain totally active. On top of that, China has rolled out fierce new penalties for foreign firms attempting to exit its supply chain infrastructure. The underlying trajectory of structural decoupling hasn't changed one bit.
And the hard data backs up this structural shift completely. U.S. imports coming directly from China have absolutely plummeted, from a peak of 22% in 2017 down to just 9% during the first 3 quarters of 2025. This proves this decoupling isn't just political posturing or temporary tariff dodging, it's a permanent physical architectural shift in global trade. Companies are tearing up the floorboards. They're moving production to Mexico, India, and Vietnam, cementing a multipolar supply chain that is frankly significantly more complex to manage than anything we had before.
But here's the crucial point. If we all know we need to decouple, why is diversifying taking so agonizingly long? Well, look at this. China maintains a massive 90% chokehold on global rare earth refining. These are the critical minerals powering literally everything, from modern consumer electronics to massive clean energy infrastructure. You can't just flip a switch and decouple overnight. Building alternative supply chains for these materials and allied nations takes 5 to 10 years to scale. We're talking about navigating complex environmental permitting, securing massive capital expenditures, and developing highly specialized engineering expertise that, right now, really only exists in mainland China at scale.
Section 4. AI. Orchestrating the chaos.
Okay, so having established this baseline of permanent chaos, tightening freight, and deep structural decoupling, we have to talk about the only mechanism that's actually capable of practically managing all of this day-to-day. Enter Agentic AI. This is a massive, massive leap forward. Platforms like Microsoft Agent 365 have just gone live this May, bringing an autonomous intelligence layer directly into the enterprise stack. And to be crystal clear, we are no longer talking about predictive AI, which just flags a delay and waits for a human to go fix it. Agentic AI actually acts. These AI agents execute intelligent, automated actions, like instantly rerouting a shipment or engaging an alternative supplier the exact second a disruption signal is verified.
And if you think this is just some futuristic buzzword, Gartner's recent prediction completely shatters that. They're forecasting that 60% of supply chain disruptions will be resolved entirely without human intervention by 2031. Just imagine a scenario where a port strike in Germany is announced. Within seconds, autonomous exception management systems cancel your ocean booking, rebook the critical freight on air cargo out of a neighboring country, and update your inventory ledger, all before your logistics manager even pours their morning coffee. Allowing AI to autonomously manage these exceptions is rapidly moving from a nice-to-have competitive advantage to a strict operational mandate.
And this timeline for adoption is creating massive urgency. If you begin deploying these agentic workflows right now, in 2026, you're going to build a compounding operational advantage over the next 2 years. By 2028, the competitive divide between AI-native operators and manual operators will be permanently set in stone. Catching up will be technologically impossible. Why? Because AI systems improve through data network effects. The earlier you deploy, the more edge cases your AI learns to handle automatically. If you wait until 2028 to even start, manual operators will simply be unable to match the efficiency, the cost savings, and the sheer speed of the early adopters.
Section 5. Designing for disruption. So how do you actually practically operate in a world where disruption is the baseline? Well, you have to avoid the massive pitfalls we're seeing in the broader market right now. There's this grim irony happening. To protect against the Hormuz crisis, companies have been heavily front-loading their inventory. But by stockpiling manufactured goods all at once, they're driving up carrying costs and actually triggering the very pipeline inflation they wanted to avoid in the first place. If your teams are hoarding inventory right now just to feel safe, they are actively participating in the problem. We saw a 7.8% spike in wholesale energy prices in April alone, fueled in part by this panic ordering. It's a textbook case of individually rational behavior, creating a massive, systemic macroeconomic nightmare.
Now, I highly recommend grabbing a screenshot of this dense sector prediction summary because it perfectly details the massive 30-day and 90-day realities you're facing across energy, trade, ocean freight, and compliance. Specifically, check out that trade compliance section. Section 122 tariffs were just invalidated. Why is that a game changer? Because it means there is currently a $127 billion CAPE tariff refund pipeline available for early filers right now. This isn't just about risk mitigation anymore, folks. This is about liquidity. You need active AI-driven monitoring of these rolling policy cliffs to legally recover trapped cash and effectively fund your strategic network pivots.
As we wrap up the explainer today, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to take right back to your operations team. When you look at the frozen conflict in Hormuz, the permanent structural decoupling with China, and the rapid rise of autonomous agentic AI, are you intentionally designing your network for the brutal, chaotic reality of today, or are you still desperately designing for the illusion of stability we lost back in 2019? Let the data lead your answer. Thanks so much for learning with me today.
Yeah.